Well, we're working on the Falcon once again. Motor is pretty much back together. Wiring is hooked up. It does crank. I had to do that to drop the distributor in. Look at the other videos if you don't know what I'm talking about on that. These Fords don't necessarily always like to just drop in like super easy unless you bump it. So basically I'll set it to where it needs to be, drop it in, still got to time it. But I got the plug out for number one, so we can do that pretty quickly. Fuel lines are hooked up. The filter is full from just two little bumps on the starter. I didn't try and start anything. Obviously plug wires, distributor cap are not hooked up. That'll come next. Got to fill the radiator, and before I get into doing that, I need exhaust. So what I did was, because I got a ton of little shorty headers, I got this set of shorties that I can run. These are ceramic coated and kind of beat up. This set here, aftermarket, the ball flange is a little messed up on this, but I don't think that's going to matter. So basically I'm going to drop these manifolds onto the car real quick and then figure out a way to just plumb some little dump pipes. Let me start getting rolling on that and see how it goes. Alright, I did not film that because it is super fun to watch, or it would have been super fun to watch me turn these header bolts in on these little shorties, doing a eighth turn at a time with a regular wrench because nothing else fits. However, they do clear the steering box barely on this side. I have to just bend this fuel line a little bit because that's a little closer than I want it to be over there. And then we'll hook up the ball flanges underneath. This side would be much easier, a lot more accessible. This side gets a little tight, but shorty tubular headers. I have the long tubes. They didn't fit or clear proper, so right now, just gonna run these. Should work. I'll throw the little collector extensions on the bottom. Try and get just a dump. If I can somehow, I think I got a couple exhaust reducers. If I can drop it down from 2.5 at the end of the collector down to a 2.25, if I have the reducers, I might try and hook the mufflers up. If not, we'll just run it open dumps. Well, that was just as crappy as I thought it was going to be. Many shorty headers are installed. We got a 2.5-inch collector, or 3-inch collector at the end of the short tube. So 3-inch ball, 3-inch flange on the other side, 3-inch female side of the ball, and then it tapers down to a 2.5. I do not have the fittings, nor do I really care that much. Obviously with shorty headers that short, it's not really going to run the best in ideal situations, but for breaking in the motor, firing it up, make sure everything still sounds okay. That is really all we need. I did take the flexi exhaust that I had, covered in crap. I did take the flexi exhaust that I had for this and hooked that up on the, basically I just jammed it into the pipe. Probably not going to last very long. Probably will rattle free very quickly and probably won't quiet down the noise all that much, but oh well, I tried. So I'm pretty much ready to fire this thing up. Just throw some gas into the carb. I know that 2 cranks pretty much primed the fuel line, but I doubt that that made it all the way up to the actual carburetor. So the only other thing I want to do is take a look at the trans lines. I do have the flare tool here today, so I might try and fish those up and forward now that I got some headers in. It'll at least give me a rough ballpark. I'll probably end up having to redo those again, but I kind of kinked them when I was putting the motor in, so I do want to clean that up real quick. So I'll freshen up the trans line, run that forward, and maybe even mount the trans cooler on the front. I do not have the drive shaft yet, so I still can't drive it. And I got one brake line to make on the rear, hook up the brakes on the back driver's side, and this thing should be pretty much ready to go. Whole lot of wiring and cleanup stuff to do. Obviously this whole mess needs to get sorted, but should be pretty close. Zip ties go a pretty long way for a shakedown run. Trans lines are actually okay. They're just looped right now, which is fine. I gotta figure out, the trans cooler I got is really long, so I don't really have a good place to put that on the front of the radiator yet, especially with the big fan on the back side. I don't have a lot of real estate for mounting that, so I might have to fab up some weird bracketry or something, figure out a place to put that, maybe even down low. I might sink that trans cooler way down here. A lot more fab than I want to mess around with right now because this thing should be about ready to start. Distributor's hooked up. Wiring is done. It should be sparking. I didn't test that yet. Radiator's full of water. Spark plugs are all run and installed, and wires are all run. Should be good to go. Got the vacuum line hooked up to the gauge. I don't have the idle set super high right now, so basically I just got to grab a squirt bottle, fill up the old carburetor with some gas. Should not take a long time for this to prime up. through the line, not nearly as long as it did last time since this was running. And like I said, 2 bumps. I've already got a bunch of gas in the filter. Filter's super dirty. Good thing that's on there, but we're pretty much ready to get this going. We're going to get Dottie out here, have her give me a hand cranking it over while I look under the hood, make sure nothing leaks or instantly explodes, and go from there. We are ready to get this thing rolling. Dottie's on her way out to crank the key for us, and we're going to see if this thing will run. Got the radiator filled up, plug wires are hooked up, spark should be working. Didn't check that yet, but it was, and everything is wired the same, so hopefully this should work just fine. Find out here in a minute. Are you ready? Is it gonna start? No faith. I don't think you have to. I can do that from up here.
Ready?
Yeah. Hold on. Try again. It's gonna start. Okay, hold on. One more. No gas, just crank it. I'll get it going. One more. Charge this battery at all. Oil pressure, cold, we're sitting at about 70, 80, just shy of 80 on a fresh build, so that's good. We're gonna let this warm up and see how it goes. Well, we are under the car having a super fun day trying to, one, fill the rear end with a little plunger pump on a 1 gallon. Super exciting, super fun. The other thing is running brake lines. So I got the rear done, got the brakes down on the outside, so the drums are all hooked up and adjusted. Should be pretty close. I gotta seat them once I actually get line pressure through it and do some final adjustments. The e-brake cables are just dangling. I'm gonna cut all of those off because I don't necessarily need e-brake things yet. So this side's done to the vent tube bracket, the T. So now I'm just fabbing up this last little one. I do have, my buddy loaned me his brake line tool rather. This thing is awesome, significantly easier and better to work with than trying to use the double flare, bubble flare kit, the generic one. This makes it way better. So just trimming down the last section of line now, throw this back up in the car, and then that's pretty much it other than bleeding the brakes. So getting there slowly. Last of the lines is done. I had one more fitting I had to replace because it was short one. Other than that, this one's gonna go from the wheel cylinder over there, down through that hook, and up into this bracket. Well, that was miserable, but brake lines are run underneath the car. So we got that one hooked up, runs across the diff to the T. From there over to the other side, I got the bleeders open. I just filled the master, so we're gonna try and see if I can get any sort of gravity bleed. Diff is filled. Now we're pretty much waiting on drive shaft so I can get this thing over to the shop and finish up the exhaust. So quick little update. Thing runs and runs. Starts up pretty easy, which is good. The motor's not making any weird noises. The only issue I'm running into right now, and I think it might just be because I'm basically running just open shorty headers. It does not want to stay alive if I rev it up and let it decel. So I might have to do a carb clean on this. I'm not sure if it's an idle circuit issue. The mixture screws are working proper as they are supposed to. However, if you blip the throttle or the choke goes all the way off, it wants to die. It does look pretty nasty and dirty in here from sitting and in and out of the garage, so I might have to just yank that carb off, do a quick carb clean and get that figured out. I also don't know if I'm going to keep running this carb because I do have a Holley 750 as well, which is kind of what my gut wants to run. So waiting on the brakes to kind of bleed down a little bit. Got to figure out what I'm doing with the transcooler somewhere over here. There is a nice air gap on the lower bumper, so I might actually drop it down in this section, make it a little bit easier to route some hoses and lines for the transcooler. But next step, once the transcooler is hooked up and I redo the trans lines, the trans is filled, everything's pretty much ready to go except for a drive shaft. So measured that one out. That should be done at some point this week, hopefully. Once the drive shaft's in, I can take this for its maiden voyage.